Hello everyone. In today's video, we are going to be discussing a few topics that are covered in IELTS Writing Task 2. Now, the IELTS exam is designed for those people who have finished a secondary level of education and are at least in the age group which is ready to apply for a bachelor's degree or even a diploma. Now, I do not mean to say that you need to be an expert on anything while preparing for the IELTS exam, but you do need to have basic knowledge about a few things so that you are able to generate relevant ideas and answer the question asked in IELTS Writing Task 2. In today's video, we are going to be discussing 4 such topics which are covered there, and we are going to be looking at 2 questions for each topic. And we are also going to be analyzing these questions to actually understand what the exam wants you to do. And also, we are going to be analyzing them in order to understand what level of knowledge should you have regarding these topics in order to have a decent score in the IELTS exam. I hope that you learned something new today. Welcome to my IELTS stream. So these are the topics that we are going to be covering in today's video. The first one is education. Number 2 is modes of transport. Number 3, environment. 4, younger versus older generations. So the first one we are going to look at is education, and the first sample question is: students perform better in school when they are rewarded rather than punished. To what extent do you agree or disagree? So when we are trying to analyze a question, the first thing we should see is the category of the question. Now, the categories have been covered in another video, and we will link it down below, and we will link it above as well. You can go and watch it. The category for this question is: to what extent do you agree or disagree? Now, if we look at the context of the question, students perform better in school when they are rewarded rather than punished. So this is a question about how to improve the performance of students in school. There are 2 different methods that the question talks about. One is being rewarded and the other one is being punished. And the question also says that they perform better if they are rewarded and they do not perform as well if they are punished. So do you agree or disagree? So if you want to take a stand of agreeing with the question, in this case, you would say that rewarding is better, and you will need to have 2 ideas in favor of rewarding instead of punishment. If you are to disagree with this question, what you need to do is you need to have ideas in favor of punishment. 2 ideas in favor of punishment. So this is a typical question that comes in the IELTS exam. To what extent do you agree or disagree is one of the most commonly asked categories. And there is a comparison that the question wants you to do. The comparison is between rewarding and punishment, and the question is about education. The second question is: some people think that a person improves intellectual skills better when doing group activities. Do you agree or disagree? So this is again another question from do you agree or disagree category, and it is related to education because it is about improving certain skills of people. Intellectual skills are another way of saying intelligence. Now, a person improves intellectual skills better when doing group activities. So this is also a comparison, but what 2 things are they comparing? That is something that they have not exposed in the question. That is something that you need to understand by yourself. So everything apart from group activities is what they're comparing with, because they have only given us one end of the question: group activities. Better when doing group activities means apart from group activities, everything else is not good enough to improve intellectual skills. Now, if you are going to be agreeing with this question, so you will need 2 ideas in favor of group activities and how they improve somebody's intelligence. And if you are going to be disagreeing with that, you will need 2 ideas which are either against group activities or in favor of other type of activities which do not happen in a group, like individual activities or activities that involve only the person along with some toys or instruments. Or for example, it could be building something, playing with Lego, or reading, or any such thing. So this is another comparative question, and you need to know where you stand in order to write an answer. So both of these questions are related to education and what should be done in schools in order to have the most benefit for the students. And at the same time, they have a comparative angle to them, and as you answer the question, your explanations should show a little bit of comparison so that you actually justify your stand and your task achievement is nicely done. So these are the 2 type of sample questions which could come in the exam related to education. We are not saying that these will appear in the exam. We're just saying that these are the types of questions related to education that normally come in the exam. Modes of transport. Some people say that the government should spend more money on railways rather than roads. Do you agree or disagree? This is another very common type of question, railways versus roads. So if you understood the previous section of the video, you would understand this one. The topic has changed to modes of transport, but the category is the same, and it is again a comparative question. So if you agree with this particular question, that means that the government should spend more money on railways according to you, and you will need to generate 2 ideas in favor of railways. If you do not agree, that means you will need 2 ideas in favor of roads, because the question specifies 2 things, railways and roads. So this is what you will need to do. One way to solve the problem of congestion in cities is to build sky trains which run overhead instead of on or underground. What will be the advantages and disadvantages of using overhead trains? So this is a different category. This is not an agree-disagree question. This question is of what are the advantages and disadvantages. So let us try and understand what the question is trying to say. Congestion is another word for traffic. So one way to solve the problem of traffic in cities is to build sky trains which run overhead instead of on or underground. So sky trains, this is a bit of a futuristic approach, and what you are required to do is, what will be the advantages and disadvantages of using overhead trains? So you will need to give ideas that give the positive sides and the negative sides of overhead trains. So this is a type of question related to mode of transport, and it is also related to traffic. So while appearing for the exam, if you come across a question which is about modes of transport, it is very likely that traffic will be part of the question. So the question wants you to consider traffic while answering about the advantages and disadvantages of overhead trains, because the concept of the question says one way to solve the problem of congestion is to build sky trains. So you could answer the question in the advantages and the disadvantages section, how it will help with the congestion, plus you will need to give more ideas because it's a plural question. Now these are the 2 types of questions that could be asked in the exam when it comes to modes of transport topic, and then again there can be other questions for modes of transport, and these are just 2 of the possible questions. One is a comparative question, the second question is not a comparative question, and it is also of a different category. Subscribe, please. help us grow this channel. We are working really hard. If there's anything in particular you want us to make a video on, we will be more than happy to help you. Let us know in the comments below and we will help you out. And we are also on Facebook and on YouTube. Please subscribe and follow. It will help us grow and encourage us to do an even better job. Environment. Very commonly asked topic. Environment and education, I guess, favorite topics of the IELTS exam. Some people think that an International Car-Free Day is the way to tackle air pollution. Okay. Others think there are other effective ways to do this. Discuss both views and give your opinion. So this is a new category. This is discuss both views and give your opinion. So I would say that this is one of the most difficult categories of the exam. Because you will need to think from various different angles. You are not allowed to completely take one side and leave out the other side. So some people think that an International Car-Free Day is the way to tackle air pollution. So you will need to have an idea that supports this opinion. Like, why do some people say that a car-free day is the best way to tackle air pollution? And why do others think that there are other effective ways to do this? So you might need to come up with an idea apart from the car-free day, and you might need to prove that this is more effective in tackling air pollution than the car-free day, and that is how you will explain the second opinion. And then at the end you will need to decide out of the two which one do you favor. So when it comes to the environment, there are a lot of questions on pollution and how to tackle pollution, how to slow down global warming, how to preserve biodiversity, and things around those topics. So this is a question around pollution. The second question is, influence of human beings on the world's ecosystem is leading to the extinction of species and loss of biodiversity. Here we are. What are the primary causes of loss of biodiversity and what solutions can you suggest? So, influence of human beings is leading to extinction of species and loss of biodiversity. The category of this question is causes and solutions. So, what knowledge will you need in order to actually answer this question? You will need to know how are human beings influencing the ecosystem in the negative way, because of which animals and plants are dying. So loss of biodiversity. So in order to answer this question, you will need to know, what does biodiversity mean? A person who has finished schooling normally knows this, and it is a very commonly known topic. If you watch the news, if you read some articles on Facebook, this is something that a lot of people commonly talk about, and that is why IELTS can ask this question. Now, you do not need to be an expert. You do not need to have scientific level of knowledge. But what do we do if we are to discuss the ideas of this question? So, what kind of influence do we have on the ecosystem that leads to death of animals, extinction of species? I would say that if I were to give two causes for this particular question, I can say that because we do deforestation, we cause extinction of species that live on the land. Now, deforestation is a concept which is taught, I think, in 6th grade, and it is a very easily understood topic. Another reason I could give, because there are two causes, so I will give another one, which is water pollution, like oil spills. So oil spills cause death of fish in oceans, and this causes loss of biodiversity. So I gave two causes on how humans interfere with the ecosystem and kill animals and fishes and plants and other species. So this is the kind of knowledge that you will need. So these are quite basic questions, and you will need to have such kind of basic everyday knowledge to answer these questions. Now, what can be the solutions? Now, solutions when it comes to something that is happening on a big scale. So for this one, I can say that the government can put a stop on deforestation to solve the first cause. to tackle the first cause, and the second cause can be tackled by the government should punish the companies who are causing oil spills. So very basic, quite direct solutions and quite direct causes. So this is the kind of knowledge that you will need to have to answer an IELTS Writing Task 2 question and actually perform well when it comes to task response or task achievement. It is not a big deal to know these things, because these things are taught in every school, and because if you are a regular citizen of any country who watches the news, who is in touch with the reality of the world, you are supposed to know these things. You do not need to be a scientist, you do not need to be any sort of certain professional to answer these questions. Now, younger versus older generation. Nowadays, old people choose to live in retirement communities rather than with their adult children. Is this a positive or a negative development? So the category of this question is this a positive or a negative development? And old people choose to live in retirement homes rather than with their adult children. Is this a good thing or a bad thing? So you just need to think about the consequences of this new lifestyle for old and young people, because the question doesn't really specify that is this a positive or negative development for the older generation or for the newer generation. No, the question is open-ended, so it is actually a good thing for you. You do not need to restrict your ideas to a certain age group, but you are allowed to think freely. So what could be the consequences when it comes to older people staying away from their younger kids? Do you think that there is more positive here than there is more negative? That depends on your personal perspective, that depends on what culture you come from, that depends on your own thinking and psychology, on your comfort level and the type of lifestyle that you want. So some questions in the IELTS exam are not actually about knowledge, they are actually about preferences, they're actually about lifestyle, they're actually about what do you want, what do you think is right, as in what you should have in your life and what you should not. So this is that particular type of question. So if you are a person who sits down and thinks about their own preferences, who knows what they want, who knows what they like, what they don't like, you will be able to answer such questions. This question is not related to knowledge, it is just common sense. So I would say that I can find both positive and negative things when it comes to this scenario, but if I would need to actually take one side, which this category requires me to take, I would say that this is a positive development, because it means that older people get to live in retirement houses where they meet fellow older people and get to make friends and have common interests with them, which they might not share with their younger children. Another reason that this is a positive change is that their adult children will become more self-dependent. So if you live with your parent, you are more dependent. It is possible that you might be more dependent on your parent, but if you live separate, it is possible that you might become more self-aware, independent. So this is about what I think. This is not about me having knowledge of any particular field. This is just preferences. The older generations tend to have very traditional ideas about how people should live, think, and behave. However, some people believe that these ideas are not helpful in preparing younger generations for modern life. To what extent do you agree or disagree with this view? So now, the structure of this question can be a bit confusing to some students because it gives me two different sentences. The older generations tend to have very traditional ideas about how people should live, think, and behave. And then another sentence says, however, some people believe these ideas are not helpful in preparing younger generations for modern life. So this has to do with change in time, change in the way of life. So you are supposed to agree or disagree with the second sentence, not the first one. If you keep on talking about the first sentence and your entire essay is about the first sentence, you will not get good balance when it comes to task achievement. You're supposed to talk about the second sentence. Now, even when it comes to this particular question, you do not need to have knowledge on anything, except for the realization that traditional values are no longer viable or practical in today's life. If that's what you believe. But if you believe that traditional values are still very much applicable, then that depends on your mindset. So if you know your mindset very well, you will be able to either agree or disagree with this question, and you will be able to produce ideas that answer the question. So this is again not about having knowledge of global warming or education, group activities, individual activities, about biodiversity, pollution, modes of transport, but this is about life and what sort of preferences you have, what sort of mindset you have, what way do you think about it. So that's it for today. I hope that you understood what we are trying to tell you in the video. In the next video, we will be covering 4 more topics about the IELTS Writing Task 2. And if there isn't anything in particular you want help with, let us know, and we will try to make a video on it. Thank you and have a nice day.